All right, guys, so we made it to Nashville Motos. I finally got the 600 miles put on this bad boy right here. I'm super excited. Drew's gonna be doing the first service on her, which I'm pumped about as well, because Drew's my boy, obviously, and I trust him to do this. But yeah, I don't know if Drew wants to go through what exactly the 600 mile service is gonna be, but I had to take it down to Nashville Motos to get this done. So.
We're doing a 600 on a M1000 RR for Mr. FastLane D. The first process is making sure everything is operational, lights and signals. As soon as Dylan gets back, we'll have his key so we can actually hook it up, make sure everything is looking good on our side, remove that rev limiter, change the oil, clean and adjust his chain, make sure we don't see anything that's warrantable in his first 600 miles. So I dropped the oil first just so it gets draining, just because it was a little cold on this motor. So give it more time to sit and settle while I do some other checks and clean it up the rest of the bike. Because this filter placement, you always get oil on the headers. Not much you can do about it. So I spend a little time just wiping it all down, make sure it doesn't smell a whole lot once the customer takes delivery. Very important thing to do on almost every single motorcycle that is chain driven is to make sure you keep good maintenance on tension or sag. Just because what happens is you'll not only wear out the chain prematurely, you could wear out your sprockets, and if you wear your sprockets too much, you could even potentially damage your actual output shaft for the front sprocket. So very key to always make sure it's good. Typically, depending on how hard you're on it, you want to at least do it every second gas station stop or fill up per the manufacturers. Here we're going to see how stretched up this one is. Let's see. This one actually is looking pretty good, right about in the middle of the spec of 4550. Looks like we got a tight spot there. So it looks like we got a tight spot that puts us about 3 millimeters under our spec. So we'll adjust it, get it back into spec just so we don't cause any premature wear. So the good news is I got all the white grease off. Bad news, what's already burnt, it's already burnt. But also a good thing to do, since this is leaking all over a coolant line, is to get this cleaned just to confirm it's not also coolant. But it's very tacky, so probably just our chain lube from factory BMW. So one thing about these chains, the M Endurance chains, they have double O-rings. So technically it's considered a maintenance-free type of chain where you don't really need to re-lubricant it. But the reason why we do is just to preserve the outer O-rings, because what you got here is the links with external O-rings and there's inner O-rings, and the inner O-rings keep its own lubricant in there to prevent it from stretching like a traditional chain. When it comes to maintenance in it like this, we do this just to protect the exterior so it doesn't eventually break into it. Which also means you got to make sure you don't overbrush them, because you don't want to damage the outer O-rings, which then will prematurely damage the inners. which if you do it right, you'll never have an issue. Haven't really seen the longevity of these ones, but it's supposed to be better, so we'll see. I would recommend the shop doing it, especially your local shop, because your local shop, not only if they find something warrantyable, there for you, but you get it taken care of for you. If you do it yourself and you miss something that is a warranty issue from factory, and it only started to appear after started riding, and you didn't catch it, and then you come in, 2,000 to 3,000 miles, and you got a really major issue now because of it, it's gonna be really hard to warranty it because it could have been caught so much sooner. Just putting light cutter oil on the oil filter, and I'm just gonna wipe off its location real quick. Since it's been kind of dripping this whole time, it should be fairly done, so I can get this installed and not worry about leaking. Okay. Okay, now we just gotta get oil in it. S1000 motors, their crank pressure is very sensitive. If you ever do your oil change and overfill it, it is very prone to wanting to essentially throw a rod because the crank pressure is already so high. So make sure when you are filling your oil, you always set it at a minimum amount, cycle it, let it run for about a minute, and then let it settle for a minute, then top it off, and never actually hit the top marker of the red circle, just so you know it's not overfilled, but at least you're in between the hashes, because as long as you're in between the hashes, you won't have any issues. This is an inline 4 motor, so you got 4 cylinders, 4 pistons, and each piston's held by a rod, connecting rod, straight to the crank. When you get excess pressure in the crank housing, it'll cause those rods to bend because of the excess force underneath them when it's getting pushed down from the combustion above the piston. When you have that issue and the rod starts to bend, it'll just only get worse because you'll have 4 or 3 rods that are straight, and then you'll have one that's bent. Eventually it's gonna just wear out from fatigue, and once it does that, it'll actually just crack, and then it'll just throw straight to the right or left into the side of the cylinder. What in God's... I actually was wondering how big this diameter was. Can you hold it still? 6.5. Huh. Who would have thought? I'm just checking its signals, making sure everything's working. He's already deleted his turn signals on the front, so nothing too crazy there to worry about. Loud noise. Horn works, that is good. Now I'm just gonna run it, let it cycle. Just because at the moment, I kind of set my oil towards the top. Once it runs, it will all settle down, go into all the passages, and then it'll start to pool where it would naturally pool. So that means your oil level will actually drop a bit, and then also your filter is going to absorb a bunch, because you can't really fill the oil filter too much because it slides in on the side, so it would just basically dump out anything. So just to do a little pre-run. This brake reservoirs, just feeling the pressure, just making sure his pads are even. Good deal. I'll get a measure out on his rotors, just make sure they're wearing evenly across from each other. And just one more look over, make sure I don't see anything before I put these fairings back on. See how well he maintains his tire pressure.
I ain't looked at it once, man. Don't expose me.
Usually they're like a brass or copper.
I guess, yeah, that's probably what it is.
They could have just anodized them.
That's pretty cool. It's the little details, man.
Just getting tread depth and rotor thickness checks. Just making sure everything's within spec. I am going to put the lower fairings on, and once those are on, I'm gonna lower it, hook it up to diag, remove the rev limiter, and make sure everything else is looking good, and just making sure our only faults are just his no front turn signals. So we're gonna do a safety ride once I finish buttoning it up, because I still gotta put the front wheel deflectors back on once I get off the lift, and then do my safety ride, make sure everything's working good, ABS, ride modes are operational. We're actually making changes in how it controls, traction control, the ABS settings, make sure quick shift is operating smoothly. It's not having any issues shifting between gears, making sure the brakes are operating properly, no pulsating, just making sure the whole bike as a round is also operating good, that the customer may not realize is wrong. During a test ride, we're making sure all your safety features work. We're making sure, obviously right before, all your signals, brake lights are all working properly. Okay. So at least other people know if I'm signaling. Yeah. And then the next thing is making sure all your ride modes, ABS, cruise control, all the features of the bike while it's going is working properly. Okay. Even when it comes to like your sensors, making sure the coolant temp's actually operating, it's going up and down. It's not just showing nothing, showing something. We want to make sure all that's reading. Because even on some of these 1250s, like the boxer ones like these, they actually have a sensor that tells you your oil level. So we always want to make sure that actually is working too. Because
that makes sense.
This bike,
that's the last thing I need. That's the last thing I need, man.
But I set your oil level, so you shouldn't have to worry about it.
Cool.
Your sight glass, you have the red circle.
Yeah.
From top to bottom, it's 1.3 liters.
Okay.
So just keep in mind, I don't know how much these are designed to burn. I think it's like 0.3 of a liter. Okay. But just keep an eye on it. Every time you get gas, check your oil level. Okay. Check your chain tension. Okay. Quickest way, it's a little difficult with yours, but I would just do this. Yeah. Just so you kind of feel the tension with your foot. So every time you get gas and feel it, eventually you'll start to notice it's loose. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Right now it's right on the edge of 45. Okay. So it will stretch out to 50. Okay. Then you can adjust it in. Okay. Because this chain is supposed to last longer, so it stretches slower. Okay. So you shouldn't have to adjust as much. Okay. It's just making sure if you go through rain or something, just re-lube it. Okay. Just to protect the outer O-rings. That makes sense. Besides that, shifted good. I made sure the rev limiter actually took. Sometimes, occasionally, there'll be a miscommunication issue, and it won't actually delete it. Yeah, so during the I'd have been upset. I'd have been in tears if I got home and that was the case. Yeah, so we always make sure to make sure we hit 9,000. Yeah. Because if you get 9,000, you're good the rest of the way. Okay, cool. Appreciate it, Drew. Yeah. Yeah, let's go, baby. Shout out to him, man, for doing this. I appreciate you guys in Nashville Motos. So. All right, so first time without the rev limiter on here. I just want to hear